Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel and blog. If my voice sounds funny, it's because I have the cold, actually only my nose is blocked and it's super annoying, but I planned this voiceover for today and that's what I will do. In this video and the next one I have for you Halloween cards, and I will be using the same stamp set for both cards, but they are completely different. The stamp set I will be using is this one. It's from Clearly Besotted, called Fright Night. If you watched my last haul video, you might remember it. I really like this stamp set, but I was struggling with what to do with it. This is a very simple stamp set, if you know what I mean. You don't have here a scene that you can stamp with little critters or a big focal image. So I had really troubles coming up with ideas, and I had something like a creative block. In such cases, I usually go on Pinterest, but this time I didn't find anything inspiring. So I checked out the blogs of my favorite card makers, and I found this card on the blog of Jana Smakula. I'm hoping it's okay showing it here. Jana is one of my favorite card makers, and I love all of her cards. And I highly recommend checking out her blog if you haven't done that yet, as she has more cards there than on her YouTube channel. And this is the card I found on her blog. And what I really liked about this card was the contrast between the purple and the white. Also, I really like cards where the circle or other shapes are partially cut off. And I haven't done this yet, so this was the perfect time to give it a try. I also have been liking cards that have stitched scallop frame around a circle. I wanted to do this, however I could not find my scalloped circle dies, so I had to drop this idea. So let's get started. These are almost all the products I will be using in this video. For this card I only used the stamps with the cat, which is going to be my focal point, and two ghosts. And I stamped them on a Bristol cardstock using the Memento Tuxedo black ink. First I colored the images. I'm using the Prisma pencils, the cool grays and the black pencil. I used the darker grays on the cat. I also added a little bit of pink for the ears. And for the ghosts I used the lighter grays and I applied the color only around the edges. I think I say this in every video or blog post where I'm using colored pencils, but I say it again, I'm not good at coloring. Blending and shading is something I'm struggling with, so I will speed this up and play some music since I'm not doing anything special anyway. So that's the finished coloring. As I said, nothing super special. I used my scissors to cut the images out. There weren't any coordinating dies available, and for images like this I actually like it because cutting out the images with scissors is super easy, and when there are coordinating dies I always feel like I need it. Not every stamp set needs the dies. It depends how complicated the image is. Anyways, I cut those 3 images out and put them aside. Next I die cut the circles in 2 sizes. The bigger one for the purple background and the smaller circle will be in orange, and I will be stamping a sentiment on top of it. I also used the stitched die from Ariel to add a stitched circle on the card base. Originally, I wanted to do what Jana did, where the white panel is raised, but since I didn't have my scalloped dies, I decided to pop up the purple circle and use the stitched embossing directly on the card base. These are the distress inks I'm using. I will have the exact names of the inks in the description below. Do you need all those distress ink colors for this project? Of course not. For the small circle, one shade of orange would be perfectly enough, and even for the bigger one shade of purple would be enough, and maybe the blue. But of course it's me and I had to use all of them, well, all that I have in my stash. Not to make my mat dirty, I have this piece of white cardstock that I laminated, and I usually use it when I'm ink blending. To stop the circle moving, I also added a repositional tape on the back. I got my blending tools ready. I prefer to use for each color different blending tool, and of course the sponge, just because I don't like to remove the sponge when the ink is still wet. So I started with the ink blending and blended all the colors I had. I also grabbed a piece of scrap paper to dab off a little bit of excess ink so I don't have any weird smudges. I try to do this when I first layer the ink. Once I have more colors on the paper, then it's okay. Often I repeat the blending, adding the colors again to get the intensity of the color that I like, but of course you could stop after the first time. Then I blended also the colors on the smaller circle. Since these are distress inks, of course I had to add some water droplets. I don't know why, but often I have problems with this. In this case, I think the brush was too big and so were the droplets. But when I'm not happy with the splatter, then I just add another coat of the distress inks to make it less visible. But here the mess was quite big. Maybe the paper wasn't fully dry when I added the distress ink, and I thought I will have to redo it, but decided not to and kept going. I took a smaller brush and added few more droplets, and this is how it looked afterwards. I wasn't super happy with it, but it was a little bit better than before. I also decided to add a little bit more of the darkest purple at the end, because I thought it wasn't dark enough. And next I decided to add some white droplets using acrylic paint mixed with water. Yeah, I should have left it out, but I watched Amy from Prairie Paper and Ink, and she was making galaxy background and used Copic Opaque White to add some droplets. I thought it was a great idea, except I don't have Copic Opaque White. I only have cheap white paint. I didn't even try to do the splatter. I added the dots directly because on my previous card, that was my trial card, I tried to use the acrylic block and brush and swipe it off the acrylic block. All ended up in mess. Maybe next time when I buy the Copic Opaque White, it will look better. Next, I wanted to add more details on the card base using additional stamps from the stamp set. And for this, I just used acrylic blocks. It's just simpler and quicker to do than taking out the Misty. I used the VersaFine ink in Onyx Black just because it's more juicy than the Memento ink, and when using acrylic blocks and stamping directly on the card base, I thought I will get better results. So I stamped the spider web 3 times. Then I added the spiders like they are hanging on the top of the card. I try to stamp them in different position. I also stamped these spiders at the bottom. There's going to be a banner with the sentiment on top of it. I wish I had the banner stamped or at least cut out so I could see the position because I stamped these spiders a little bit low, but they just could be slightly higher. To stamp the sentiment, I used the Mini Misty and I stamped on a green piece of cardstock I had in my stash. If you don't have a green cardstock but have a green distress ink or any ink that can be blended on a paper, you can try using that. This is something I did in my Halloween card from last year. And talking about my Halloween card from last year, I used the same stamp set for the sentiment Happy Halloween. It's from the All Occasions sentiments from Clearly Besotted. And I used a Memento Tuxedo black ink. The reason why I used Memento instead of VersaFine is because I like to use dye inks or inks that dry faster on very smooth cardstock. And of course I stamped it twice to have a nice black sentiment. I also stamped the Fright Night sentiment from the main stamp set I was using onto the small orange circle. Then I used my paper trimmer to cut off the green banner. I also cut off the edge of the purple circle, and here I made a mistake. What should I have done first? I didn't check how much I need to cut off. I should have first put a circle in the middle of the stitch outline and mark where I need to cut. Luckily it didn't destroy the card, but after a few mistakes already I was quite annoyed. After I cut off the bit on the side, it left the side white, which I didn't like, so I grabbed one of the blending tools that I had still the sponge on it with the purple ink and dabbed the ink along the edge of the circle. Then I added a few foam squares on the back of the circle and attached it to the card base. With the orange circle I was a little bit more careful and checked how much I need to cut off. Then I just used my scissors to cut it and adhered it to the card. I only used the foam tape on the top of the small circle, and on the bottom I added a tape adhesive because the bottom part is adhered on top of the purple circle that is already raised. Next I adhered the little images from the stamp set that I colored and cut out, and I also stamped the words boo and woo that are also in the stamp set, and I stamped them directly onto the card base next to the ghosts. I stamped the words before I adhere the ghosts since it's easier as the ghosts will be raised as well. Then I adhered the cat using foam tape again and I placed it in the middle of the purple circle. I trimmed the banner and cut a little fishtail and adhered it to the card base. I adhered it the same way as the orange circle. I only put the foam tape on the part of the banner that is not touching the purple circle, and the parts that are touching it, I just use the tape adhesive. Before adhering the ghosts, I added the googly eyes. These I got in a local store where I live. To adhere them, I used the multi-medium matte glue from Ranger. Little tip, make sure you wait a minute or two for the glue to dry. I really think the googly eyes bring lots of fun to the card, don't you think? I also stamped the other word, woo, on the card base. I just needed to have the green banner cut out to know where I will place the second ghost. Then I adhered the ghost using the foam tape as well as the tape runner. At the bottom ghost I adhered slightly above the banner, touching the purple circle on the side. And the ghost on the top I adhered at the top of the purple circle. Here you can see the finished cards. Yet again I adhered some sequins a little bit later, which I didn't film. After the mistakes I made, I'm so happy with the results. I think while you can see where I got the inspiration for this card, it's not a copy of Jana's card, and I think I managed to make it my own. And I really hope you enjoyed this video despite of my cold. If you did, make sure you give it thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any future videos. And make sure you check out my blog as well, as I post a new card almost every week. I also have there more photos of the cards. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Pinterest. The links to those as well the list of supplies that I use to make this card you can find in the description below this video. Just click on show more. Also check out my Halloween card from last year. This was actually my first video on this channel. So that's all for today. I will see you in my next video. I will have one more Halloween card for you. I hope you will have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!